Hola, it's Joe Pardavila. Welcome back to the Forbes Books podcast. And the first question a lot of entrepreneurs ask themselves after they've developed a product or service is, what makes me marketable? What is it that I do that will make my thing commercially viable? When it comes to sports, Michael Jordan not only changed basketball forever, but he changed the world of marketing as well. Sure, athletes have always pitched products. Babe Ruth used to hawk cigarettes, and Muhammad Ali once endorsed roach traps. But Jordan was something else. Last year, he made an estimated $130 million from Nike. That's 4 times as much as LeBron James, and Jordan walked away from the Bulls more than 20 years ago. So what makes an athlete marketable? Joining me today is the CEO of one of the most recognizable sports marketing companies on the globe, GSE Worldwide. His name is Mike Principe. Hey there, Mike.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And let's start with GSC. You describe yourselves as a fully integrated talent representation and sports marketing agency. What separates you from the other folks that do what you do?
Well, everybody does a good job. We think we do a great job. We've got 30 dedicated GSEers, 175 clients. Our differentiators are, the deals we do. Our guys and gals routinely get highest market deals for our clients, whether it's huge 8-figure deals that you'll see for the Bryson DeChambeaus, the Jim Furyk's of the world, the truly creative deals you'll see for the Sophia Kennons and the Motorola's, the Lexi Thompson Goldman Sachs deals. We're really creative in the deals that we do in terms of driving value. We try to be first movers outside of Gronk and Pat Mahomes. We led off the sports world by kicking off the next 2 NFTs. We launched Bryson DeChambeau's NFT, the first global athlete. And then we did the first NCAA athletes NFT, Luka Garza, the 21 Naismith Player of the Year award. So, look, we drive good deals for folks, great deals, top of the market deals. And we're very creative in how we approach the market in driving new technologies or new, literally new product for the market.
All right, cool. There's a lot to unpack there, and we're going to get to some of that later. But how common is the fact that you're sort of a hybrid agency, sports marketing and the talent side of it? Is that pretty common nowadays in your world? Because I just remember it always being, they sort of lived in different silos, the marketing and the talent side. So how common now is it this sort of like hybrid approach?
It's getting more common, much more common. You still will have the individual one discipline shops that will focus purely on field or focus purely off field, or will just do talent but won't do corporate consulting, or will do events but won't do talent. We identified about 20 years ago that the key for us is content, and talent is content. And it's not rocket science. Mr. McCormick, who founded IMG, in the 50s, 60s, he figured that out. Now, we're fortunate enough actually to have McCormick DNA in our business. His grandson, Chris McCormick, works with us, who is just a super agent and individual. But we identified that content always has been and is king. Talent creates that content. So for us, we look at an integrated business that revolves around talent and then uses our talent both as access and content to get into the corporate side, to get into the branding side, to get into the selling side for properties and brands. And then what we do also is we'll use our talent to create events around them as well. So for example, we've got a robust tennis practice. We have a top 10 tennis agency in the world. Sloane Stephens, Sophia Kennan, Grigor Dimitrov, Sam Querrey, Jack Sock, Jeannie Bouchard, some really young, fun athletes, and Brenda Nakashima and Leyla Fernandez. But what we did, and we're actually holding this event, we created the world's most exclusive tennis pro-am, where we will create a tour-like environment. We do it before the U.S. Open, before Indian Wells, and we're planning on doing it before Wemby, before COVID hit. But we take our athletes, we will take other tennis stars, and put them in a tournament format with amateurs. And we create a whole weekend out of it. We have a massive player party bash the night before. And then the following day, we have this wonderful day-long, basically, event of tennis where we use our clients as the content and the focal point, and we'll invite CMOs and CEOs and other folks we want to broaden relationships with. And when we're able to take our content and specifically drive relationships to them and through them, for us, that's the brass ring.
I got a super simple question to probably a very complex answer, but what makes an athlete marketable?
Wow. Okay.
I told you it was a very simple question, but very complex answer. I did warn you, Mike.
Well, look, fortunately, I've had 2 kids, so those super simple questions like, why is the sky blue? Or what's past the star? Okay. Talk to your mother.
Yeah.
Right?
Your wife can't help you now, so it's on you, Mike.
No, it's on me, and I accept the mantle of responsibility.
Okay.
First and foremost, we're Americans. We have a winning culture. Winning is the first key to marketability. You win, people want to be associated with winners. 2, personality. Is the person do they have attributes that are appealing to a large demographic? And look, certain people are marketable to certain demographics and to certain businesses, and other folks are marketable and appealable to another. A gymnast may not be as appealable as to a demo that an NFL lineman may be. It could be 2 different personalities. But I would say it's skill level, personality. Good looks never hurts. More and more good looks is becoming synonymous with marketable. But I'd say skill, personality, and good looks.
All right, cool. I'll give you a gold star for that answer, Mike. Nice job on that.
Thank you.
Now, from a marketing perspective, to me, the NFL has always been sort of this top-heavy league. There's usually about 4 or 5 players that dominate most of the major marketing opportunities, and it's usually quarterbacks outside of a J.J. Watt that had a great run as an A-list pitchman. What kind of pie does that leave everyone else? And I know the marketing pie when it comes to NFL is pretty large, it being the number 1 sport here in the United States. But how much are the rest of the folks fighting over?
Joe, you nailed it. The NFL is a monster in terms of size, and it's a monster in terms of consumption. So you'll see a Mahomes or a Gronk or Brady or
Aaron Rodgers. Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers. And by the way, if you look at all those guys, going back to your first point, all winners. Yeah. They all project great personalities on camera. They're all, inverted commas, marketable. But the NFL is so big, and there's so much visibility and exposure that there is more than enough room for other folks. One, in the local markets, not every deal has to be a national deal. But the thing we love about football is there's always a Super Bowl. And, in non-COVID times, the Super Bowl is a week-long industry affair, and there's Radio Row, and there are interviews, and there are signings and autographs, and it's just it's just this voracious maw of content consumption around a Super Bowl. Same thing around college bowl games. You see a lot of guys who, if they're not playing in the NFL, retired or injured, they'll be around for those things. So there's more than enough room in the NFL because it's so large outside of your superstar marketers.
And let's go on the other side of the coin there in baseball. And I want to talk about marketing baseball. It's something you have a lot of experience in. I think one of the companies you used to run, Legacy Agency, was focused on hardball. Why aren't baseball players not part of the zeitgeist like they were when we were growing up? I know Shohei Ohtani's having a moment, but there just aren't that many players that are household names anymore. Again, this might be a very complex answer you're going to have to give me, but what happened to baseball? Why don't they just have that it factor anymore?
And it's something we've given a lot of thought to. 2 reasons. One, the Players Union has done such a good job of increasing average salaries and player contracts. We're seeing $340 million contracts. Jack Welch would be, pleased with a payday like that. I mean, these are real dollars. So one, guys are getting so well compensated on the field. But if you think about it, they're also playing 162 games in effectively 6 months. And then you've got, spring training or any winter ball. So guys don't have a ton of downtime. And it may not be worth burning your 1 or 2 days off a month for a marketing deal that kind of pales in comparison to your playing contract. So there may be less incentive for athletes to do that. And two, the second thing I would say is, as sport and media has become more regionalized, baseball, I believe, has become hyper-localized. The national game of the week, you don't really see that much anymore because there's so much programming. There's so many games on the local networks or the regional networks that it's hard to capture a national audience in baseball, or harder than it was 20, 30 years ago, where you had 4 or 5 stations and you knew you were always going to see Twib Notes. So that's where you would get your baseball update or something.
I think it's you mentioned that, and one of the things I've always said is I think cable killed and helped baseball, because as a kid growing up, you only saw your local team, and then if you wanted to see like the superstar from, say, if you're a Mets fan, if you want to see a superstar from the American League, the only time you could see that player was either when they were playing the Yankees, which you hated to do, or the All-Star game. Now all of a sudden, and I know they've kind of dialed back on this, there's baseball games 4 or 5 days a week, and on top of that, when SportsCenter came of prominence in the 80s, you can get all the highlights and know all the players without having to invest 3 hours in it. So, but of course, obviously, on the money side of that, baseball got enriched by these cable deals. So I think it's one of the things where it's helped and hurt the game itself.
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you on that. If you look at the other side, there's still around 70, pre-COVID, around 70 million tickets sold a year. So, baseball is it's a real sport. Ratings may be down. Well, there's other content, but people still go watch a lot of sport. And because it's so content heavy, the broadcasters, whether it's local, regional, national, cable, digital, OTT, it just fills content. So it will always be a valuable commodity. Baseball's not dead by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and you bring up TV ratings. Are we at a point now, Mike, where we just don't care about the ratings anymore like we used to? The Super Bowl no longer breaks records. You see basketball games and baseball games, their ratings are minuscule. I mean, are we at a point where it's like, I guess not a lot of people are watching, but it's still a valuable property?
You know what I think, Joe? I think that we don't have the metrics right yet. And I know a lot of groups are trying, the Nielsen's of the world are trying to get the ratings right, because there's so many ways to consume that given piece of content. There's so many ways to consume the game. You're not just watching it on television or watching it on cable. You could watch it through your handheld. You could stream it someplace. And I don't think there really is an effective method of tracking all that. I actually think that once there is an effective method of aggregating the exposure, you will see increase, because there are more access points to watch these sports. We just haven't done a very good job of being able to measure the collection of aggregation.
And on that point too, bringing up my cable point, also the technology point, the fact that back in the day, again, you only had that one chance to see that ball game. But now all of a sudden, if you want to see LeBron play the Brooklyn Nets, you don't have to watch that game. You could wait till after the game's over, pop on YouTube and watch the highlights. So in a way, it's widening its reach, but then in a way it's siphoning the eyeballs that would normally watch that game at that particular time when it's on.
Joe, you're right. Look, I'm sure you're familiar with this, that sometimes you'll be watching a game and you'll have your Twitter feed open or you'll have your Instagram open. And you could be watching another game, and as things are happening, you're tracking something else. And holy cow, LeBron just did this. Let me switch over there. So it's really interesting how we're consuming sport these days. And
I guess on that point, though, Mike, you could say that just about any media. You see the numbers on your regular broadcast networks and even TV in general, and even these streamers. You never hear about streaming data unless it's good. Disney Plus only puts out a press release when they have blockbuster numbers. So we really don't know how many people are consistently consuming all this media, but we just know it's out there. And who knows? I'm just worried about the fact that everything is going to be sort of just we're going to be all living in this world like we're not going to watch the game anymore, we'll just watch the highlights.
Yeah.
I miss and like you said, the ticket thing is probably a big thing. Like the in-game experience is probably going to be the biggest driver going forward, because I just don't think TV ratings are going to be there in the future.
And you know what, Joe, and maybe this just belies my age and sometimes a pining for an earlier time, but one of my favorite things in the world was, going to a baseball game for, let's just say it's 3 hours, and actually scoring the game.
Yeah.
I could have been 10 years old or 40 years old, but there was just kind of just a pleasant cadence about being locked into one thing for 3 hours at a time. And I hope that doesn't disappear, because it's certainly dated, it's getting faded, but that was always a very special thing for me to do.
No doubt. Well, thanks for indulging me on that. Let's get back into GSE and GSE's involvement in golf. I know a couple of years ago you acquired a Swiss-based golf management agency. Why are you betting on golf?
Oh, man. We're betting on golf for a number of reasons. One, the world's becoming more and more global, a global marketplace. Golf is truly a global sport. Yes, the NBA is hyper global in their outreach. But if you look at golf, there are tours all over the world, and on the leaderboard in any given day, you'll see Americans, you'll see Spaniards, you'll see Colombians, you'll see Mexicans, you'll see South Africans, you'll see English, you'll see Scotch. It's really global. So for one thing, we're betting on the global nature of the sport, and two, the demos that it represents are fairly higher end. And we think there's always a room for luxury in the marketplace. And when GSE, when we're looking at investing in different businesses, it's not unlike building your own portfolio. You look to have a balanced mix of assets. And with golf, and tennis for that matter, the demographics that they represent are more higher end. There is a fair amount of luxury and wealth in the world. And we wanted to have exposure to that. The other thing is the two gentlemen whose company joined with us, Carlos Rodriguez and Eric Nierskau, are just phenomenal, phenomenal golf agents, but more importantly, phenomenal human beings. And in the 2 years that, I can't believe it's really only been 2 years, they're not just partners, they're friends and their family at this point. It was more betting on Carlos and Eric, with the understanding that this was definitely a sector that we wanted to be in.
It's funny because you remind me of being an old school radio guy. I remember in the marketplace the old timey talk radio station. They would nowhere be near the top 10 of the radio of the radio stations in that particular town. But the fact that they had an older audience that was a little more affluent, they can go after the Lexuses and the Mercedes of the world. And then those stations, even though they didn't have the numbers that the other stations did, they were making more money because they were so attractive to media buyers. And I guess that's sort of like what you're investing in now. It's not just, you're obviously not going to have as many eyeballs on a golf player as you would, say, an NBA star, but the fact that you're catering to that luxury crowd, it does come at a premium price.
Correct. And a golfer can have a 30-year career on tour. I'm not saying it's akin to owning a utility stock, but it's a long, with the right athletes, fairly safe investment.
All right, so let's segue from guys who can play the sport for 30 years to the kids. We're currently living in the early days of the NIL era in college sports. Back in July, the NCAA granted athletes the right to profit from the NIL, their name, image, and likeness. How does GSE fit into this landscape?
Well, very firmly and strongly. We, before NIL, was enacted, and Joe, as you're aware, it's still a rapidly developing space. I mean, it is.
Is Wild West is a good way to describe it?
Some people may.
Yes.
Some people may. How about this? I can tell you, it is a rapidly shifting regulatory patchwork, where we're trying to understand some, as certain states have enacted laws. Those states' laws are not uniform. The NCAA has given some guidance, not a tremendous amount. The federal government so far is looking at two different pieces of legislation. So I mean, Wild West, it's not a far cry, but we we've had a very healthy talent marketing business from before NIL. And talent marketing we define as securing off-field, off-court, off-course opportunities for our clients. So, anything that's not negotiating with a team, basically, the Rolex deal, the Gatorade deal, the Bentley deal, the Goldman Sachs deal, the Rocket Mortgage deal, the DraftKings deal. So what we're doing is we are targeting certain schools and certain individuals, athletes that we think have high marketing potential, both as college athletes in their own right and who have the potential to be really good pros. And we're taking a really targeted approach to how we who we want to represent, what we have to be a good fit with, and they have to be a good fit with us. And then, we always want to under promise and over deliver. We don't want to go out and try to sign 50 kids, but not be able to secure deals for them. So it's, it goes back to who's marketable and why. We've signed 11 NIL athletes to date, and we're in a couple more conversations of I think smart, mutually beneficial relationships right now.
Cool. One thing as you speak, the one thing I think about is, do you take sort of like, to borrow Wall Street parlance, a buy and hold type thing where you're investing in players that maybe not just good now, but you're looking at a track record where after college they do have a very prolific professional career? Do you have that future focus when it comes to signing these NIL deals?
Yes, we do. We do. I mean, representing a tight end for their name, image, likeness in college at first glance, may not be the flashiest player on the team. But what about the quarterback, or what about the wide receiver, or how about that running back, or what about the cornerback that could, do that pick six? Why are you guys representing the tight end? Well, we think he's going to be a terrific pro because, and by the way, we're proud to represent this gentleman in college because, one, they're good. Two, our kind of person, great personality, will think resonate really well in any sort of environment. And with the college kids, we focus less on the marketability looks aspect of it, because these are student athletes. We want to make sure that they're truly focused on their skill and their personality.
And, I'm a Jets fan, so I don't want to wish Jalen Waddle too much luck since the Dolphins drafted him. But what are you doing so far with the kids that just came out in the NFL draft?
We're trying to be very selective in the deals that we secure for folks. We don't want to. We also don't want to overload people. This is a very important time for Jalen. He's got to focus on understanding the game plan. He's got to read the book. He's got to study the book. He's got to develop relationships with his players. He's got to develop relationships with the quarterback. He's got to develop relationships with the coaches. The last thing we want to do is to, distract him or shift his focus away from being the best NFL player he could possibly be. So we're really being very cognizant and sensitive of Jalen and his family as how he progresses into the NFL.
Cool. And, movies like Jerry Maguire and TV shows like Entourage really glamorize the world of sports agents. When a young person, say Generation Z, or asks you for advice, what's the first thing you tell them when it comes to pursuing a career in this space?
Invest in yourself, Joe. You see these movies and, oh yeah, if I could just go to the club and hang out with the guys, or go to the gym and work out with the guys, or be this person's chaperone, or hang out with them, and I'll do whatever it takes. I'll answer the call at 3 o'clock. I'll be Turtle. It doesn't make a difference. Or I'll be the Rock and Ballers. And that fairly one-dimensional kind of stuff. If you want to be a really, really good agent, yes, you need to be able to have a relationship with people, but you've got to understand the business inside and out. If you want to be an agent in a team sport, study the CBA. understand what other deals were done, own those comps, comparables, know what it takes to be good at a certain position, learn the teams, learn who's at what team, what the GMs think, who are the scouts, who are the coaches, the assistant coaches, the minor league managers. The more information that you could learn about the sport, the better you'll be. It's not show me the money and I've got a really good athlete and I'll just throw numbers out and they'll give me a deal. There's so much work behind it, Joe. The best agents are the ones that do all their work and beforehand to continue doing their work.
And I know a lot of that stuff is Hollywoodized, but how do you think that Hollywood captures your field, whether it's the Jerry Maguires or the Ballers or Entourage? And I know you mentioned it's that they capture sort of the outer layer of it, but not the guts of it. Do you think they do a good job of characterizing what it's like to be an agent?
Oh, man, it's tough. I'll tell you, I was actually very pleasantly surprised with Ballers when they actually went through, they got a little deeper with The Rock and how challenging it can be. I mean, this is on the personality of the agent. I mean, it's if you think about it, it's an awesome responsibility being an agent for somebody. I mean, this is not just hey, let's have fun at the club or let me drive you around. I mean, you are a fiduciary of your client. That means, you have to put your client's interests ahead of yourself. And sometimes you're dealing with amateurs, with 16, 17-year-olds in the non-team sports, or 18, 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds who are just developing through life as normal young adults. And then you layer on the pressures and stressors of their inverted commas job. Then you layer on how to have a healthy relationship with money. And then you layer on how to have a healthy relationship with the friends and family around you. And the agent's job is to manage all of that for the benefit of their client. And then when you're talking about multi-generational wealth, that's an awesome responsibility. And it could be very emotionally taxing on an agent. It's a very difficult job. I think Ballers actually did the best job showing some of the pain and struggles that The Rock had in being an agent.
And you're a sports fan, but you're also obviously in the sports agent world. When you see stories of an agent maybe steering a player to signing the biggest possible deal in maybe the worst situation, maybe they're taking a lot of money for a bad team knowing they'll never win, but they're going to create all this generational wealth for their family. Like, your agent side of you is probably like, yes, do that. But does like the fan in you be like, man, wouldn't it be better if that player took $2 million less to sign with a better team? How do you, Mike, separate that in your own brain?
Yeah, so Joe, that's a really interesting question. I'm going to give you a middle-of-the-road answer that it depends on the circumstance. And let me throw a caveat on that. Because let's take the converse. Let's take the 19-year-old baseball player that's played 1 year in the majors and signed a $30 million deal for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Right, so on the other side is, as an agent, holy cow, this guy just might have given up literally $100 million of value. But who's to say? I mean, someone's off guaranteeing you $30 million and maybe you came from nothing, or even maybe you were healthy. Someone guaranteeing you $30 million, that may be a difficult thing to pass away too. So it's one of these things where as a fan, you could look at it both ways. If I'm a fan and I'm a club and we do my guys sign a rookie up for $30 million, but we get 10 years plus 2 club options. As a fan, I could be going bananas saying this is the best deal ever. Mm-hmm. As an agent, I may be saying, oh my God, I can't believe the agent did that deal. Yeah. But we're not in the room with the family, and they may be saying, hey, $30 million, no one has to worry about anything ever again. Okay, that's fine. Right, so it's really is a case-by-case situation.
Yeah, you down in sort of like the war room ground level when it comes to these sports agents, do you take? I mean, or maybe this is something conversations you've had with agents. How do you weigh winning against profits? Like, because like we're going. I know you kind of went right down the middle of the road, but like if a situation comes up where or maybe this is a conversation you've had with someone in the field, like where the player is torn about getting the most amount of money, or maybe going into a situation where they can win championships or be in a better situation. Maybe it's just a franchise that has a history of winning or something like that. How do, and obviously, like you said, case by case basis, but generally, what side do the players weigh in on that side? Do they usually generally just go with the bigger deal?
Some do. I'd say, look, 80% do, because you do have a finite period of playing time. This isn't, the old days where if you're working at IBM, you're always working at IBM. You do have a short window to maximize your earning potential. On the other hand, if you have the opportunity to play in a really big market and the chance to win, that may have a longer term impact on your earning ability than, making $2 or $3 or $5 extra $1 million for a club that's going to go 1-16 or something.
Awesome. Well, Mike, I should probably ask one last thing, because I know you guys are investing in NFTs. For folks not super familiar with it, because again, sort of like the NIL, it's sort of the Wild West era of it. Explain what an NFT is in sort of layman's terms as you can, and how you are getting involved in NFTs.
NFTs, it's short for non-fungible tokens, and they are unique digital, we'll call them works of art or digital collectibles that are unique to a buyer, that are limited and numbered. It's like a physical collectible or a physical work of art that is that lives in a digital medium. And these NFTs are sold sometimes at auctions, a timed auction or a Sotheby's-like auction, or sometimes they're just in a store to purchase. And look, they're fun. They're interesting. It's a new art. It's the Wild West now. I think, like everything, there will be a push towards quality. There have been some fairly silly NFTs that have gone out there, around bodily functions and just silly things because of the uniqueness of it. But over time, I think the fad will slow down, and it will become a rush to quality, but it'll become its own unique medium of art. Where we are with NFTs is we're not investing in buying or selling NFTs. Where we reside is working with our clients and using their name, image, likeness, their marketability for the right clients to, bring NFTs on their behalf to the market. So we're NFT creators, not acquirers or investors in that sense.
Cool. Lastly, if we were to put together a sort of Mount Rushmore of sports marketing stars, and obviously Jordan's up there, but if you had 3 other heads you could put on that Mount Rushmore about athletes that transcended their sports and became sports marketing gods, who would you put up there?
MJ, yes. And this is nepotism is not alive and real, but I will say GSE client Bo Jackson.
Okay.
What the guy accomplished and what happened to be a tragically shorter career than you may realize is crazy. You know what? In a weird way, I'm going to put Babe Ruth up there if we're going to go in the lexicon, because Babe, he was the granddaddy of baseball. Other folks who everybody knew, but there was one Babe. Babe put the face on baseball, on baseball, and then you know what? I mean, I'm just trying to be fairly even about all those things. Looking at different sports, it's hard to say Gretzky's not a piece of that as well, because for a while Gretzky brought a sport fully into the mainstream. I mean, he was MJ of his sport, and really did an amazing job getting behind it from a marketing perspective.
Awesome. Well, Mike, we got some room for you up there on that Mount Rushmore, because you do a great job in sports marketing. He is the CEO of GSE Worldwide. Mike, thank you very much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for speaking with me, and enjoy the rest of the summer.
Absolutely, you as well. And that's it for this edition of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get my new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.